Next up on this BYD Atto3 battery pack strip, I've cut all the bus bars into 14S segments. Now I just need to join onto all the negatives of each of those segments and run them all to a central location, which I've actually already done that. That's what all these cables here are all about. Each one runs off to the negative of each of the groups. The next step will be to put the positive cables on, and then I need to put in all the cell taps on each individual cell of all 126 cells down the length of the pack. So I will be at this for a while. Here's a bit of a close-up of what I've done at each of the cell bus bars that I've cut. After I cut the bus bar into two sections, I just folded the bus bar up and made use of this little eyelet section that they've got at the top here, which is where they've come through to do their laser welding onto the actual cell terminals. Folded up, bolted, cleaned it all up, bolted through a nut and bolt there with the eyelet on it that goes to the cable, with a little bit of like anti-oxiding goop and that on there. Now I just need to go and do all the same on all the positive ones. So I'll bother to record this one. I didn't record the negative one. Sorry about that. The big bonus to now is I'm no longer working with hazardous voltages. Everything here is below about the 50 volt mark, so I no longer need to wear all my gloves and everything like that. There's still a danger of shorting stuff out and fire and that, but there's no longer a hazard to my health of if I touch it, well, I can touch all this and it's not going to do me any damage anymore. For all the cell taps, I plan on the far side, obviously I'm putting all the BMS cell taps down the far side of the battery. For this side, I'm just going to make use of these terminals that they've run across the top of the internal of the cells here. They've run across the pack. So I just need to solder each one of these bus bars to one of these corresponding cell links, internal links inside the cells there. I'm planning on putting some fuse holders like this in between the bus bars and the pass-through links that go to the other side of the battery pack, and then all my BMS leads I can pick up from the far side of the battery pack without having to worry about trying to run them all down this side of the pack and down the far side of the pack, and it's already going to be very chaotic down this side of the pack by the time I have all these main battery leads in here. I was umming and ahhing whether I should put a fuse or just a link of wire. You know, these fuses aren't really rated to full pack voltage. They'll certainly break the 3 or 6 or 8 volts or whatever if you get across here. But if like this cell here shorted this cell here and you've got 40 odd volts across it, I mean this fuse will still blow, but it's not what it's actually rated to do. But I figured a underrated fuse is going to be better than no fuse at all if there is a short. Not that I'm expecting any shorts to be in this pack, but and just as an idea of how many fuses I've got, it's quite a few to attach. What I'm planning to do for the positive cables is I've just bolted a fuse onto this battery lug here, onto the cable here. I'm just going to put a little rubber boot over that to protect it. And then I'm just planning on bolting that onto there like that. Let's see if we're going to do this. Like that. And a bolt down there, and then send a nut down to lock it on. Nice little insulated Allen key now. That's because I was getting a little bit close to the bus bars. Well, it worked, not as well as I wanted to. I had to redo it and put an extra couple washers in there and change the angles that I was tightening everything up in. But that should work like that. Now I've got at least one cable that'll run down to that far bus bar at the end there, which will then eventually end up at the front of the pack. Just got to do it on all the other ones now. just in this little section here, I've had to put a little bit of conduit over it just to protect it, because it has to come over a bar that runs across the center of the pack there. So I'm just putting a little bit of conduit because I feel it's going to be a little bit squashed up in there as all the cables try to get past. I'm going to go through all along here. I'm going to put various amounts of silicone everywhere just to hold all the cables in place, just so they don't vibrate around or rattle around or move when they've got current flowing through them and rub on something. The positive and negative cables are attached to all the 14S packs now. So I'll just run all the negatives to the far right, all the positives to the far left, and they will end up all terminating up on that end one there. All that cabling there will go to there, and all that cabling there will go to that lug right at the end there as well. And then from there it will go to the BMS, which I'll mount up in that cavity at the end where all the contactors and that were. And then I've just got to connect it up to my solar inverter. I want to solder a link wire between this point here and this point here on each of the bus bars. I was going to try and put a fuse holder on this side of it, so I actually fuse the length as it runs across the battery, but that's just not going to work for me. It's just going to get too crowded on this side of the battery with all the fuse holders. By the time I put 6 fuse holders on each link here, it's just, yeah, very crowded. So I'm just going to put a link wire here and I'll fuse it at the other end, and I'll just hope that the cells never get any internal shorts. Theoretically they shouldn't. I'm just going to go through and tin all the nickel strips coming off the bus bars, then I'll come through afterwards and solder wires onto them all. Please don't judge my soldering iron. It's had a bit of a hard life. It's certainly got a bit warm into the stage, but it still works fine. Not that you can't actually switch it off anymore, but don't judge me. All the BMS sense wires are now soldered on, going between the bus bars and the little cell pass-through terminals that go inside the cells there, all except for this little critter in here, this one just here, which I've torn the nickel strip off of it when I was pulling the BMS daughter boards off. I will have to spot weld a new nickel strip onto there before I can solder anything onto it. I've got one last little wire here. So, of all 126, there was only one that I damaged, so I mean, that's not bad. It's less than 1%. I've squelched some silicon on all around where the fuses and bus bars are for a little bit of a strain relief, and also just to stop any bits of metal getting stuck between the bus bars, because obviously these 2 points here are going to be 40 odd volts apart, so I don't want any tiny little slithers of metal falling in that gap there and blowing things to kingdom come. So I've just gone all along. Got some rolls of cable in here just holding things in place while the silicon's all setting. Yeah, and we're all done for the weekend. God, I feel like I'm talking to myself.